Hello everyone. Welcome to the InStyle Knitting Studio. In this lesson we will discuss how to knit a false edging for a neckline. Here I have such a sweater. Now I want to crochet the neckline and knit a ribbing 2x2 here. Since I have a 2x2 ribbing at the bottom and on the sleeves, I can knit a ribbing 1x1. This is up to your discretion. You will need 2 pairs of needles that are approximately the same size. A size in which we knit ribbing. I have 3.5 and 4, since I do not have 2 pairs in size 3.5. To knit this neckline we need to make some calculations. Initially, we measure the circumference of the neckline with a measuring tape. I have 62 centimeters. How did I do this? I tried on the sweater and measured the circumference of my neck with the measuring tape in the spot where I want the neckline to end. I have 62 centimeters. And the neckline is knitted based on the head circumference. But this is if you want the neckline to be narrower. I want it to be wider. Therefore, I do not take the head circumference. But I take a little more. For instance, I have a head circumference of 54 centimeters, but I will knit the neckline for a circumference of 62 centimeters. I took 8 centimeters more. In general, measure with a measuring tape the neckline where you want the edging to end. I have 62 centimeters, a ribbing 2x2. I take ribbing 2x2 and stretch it. I already have a ribbing at the bottom 2x2, right? Stretch it as much as possible and see how many stitches I have in 10 centimeters. So, I counted, in 10 centimeters, I have 16 stitches. In 1 centimeter, x in the proportion, we multiply 1 centimeter by 16 and divide by 10. We get that in 1 centimeter, there are 1.6 stitches. Then, we take the circumference we measured. Multiply it by the density we obtained. As a result, we get the number of stitches, which we need to cast on for our neckline. This amount should be a multiple of 4 in my case. I will be knitting ribbing 2x2. If you are knitting ribbing 1x1, then naturally, this number of stitches must be a multiple of 2. In other words, it should evenly divide by 2. After making such simple calculations, we arrived at the number of stitches that we are about to cast on. For the cast on, we will need 2 pairs of needles on a cable. I have a long cable and plus a hook of roughly the same size. We will use the needle size with which we knitted the ribbing at the bottom or on the sleeves, so for me, it should be size as I mentioned. I have one set of needles, 3.5, the other 4, and my hook is 3.5. The hook has this type of end. Right here, to make it easy to transfer stitches onto the needle. You will see why we need 2 pairs of needles as we proceed. We take our neckline with the right side facing us. For example, from our shoulder seam, we take 1 pair of needles, here's the cable, yes, and lay it like this. Hold it with your left hand. Next, I will set aside the second pair of needles for now. We take our yarn. Leave quite a long tail. So that it will be easy to hide later, I take the hook. It's easier for me to cast on stitches with the hook, and look. I catch the edge stitches, although you can insert the hook a little closer here, in general. To avoid creating large holes here, that means we insert the hook into the edge stitch through both strands. Yes, and let's say we first place the cable onto our hook. We grab the yarn and pull it through. We have cast on 1 stitch. Next, we cast on the second stitch. We take the next edge stitch. Now we lay the cable underneath the hook. We have cast on the second stitch. We insert the hook into the next edge stitch. Now the yarn. Cable is on top. We grab the working yarn. We are again inserting into the edge stitch. Now, the cord from the bottom. We grab the working yarn. This is how I cast on stitches. Sometimes the cord is on the hook above. Sometimes below. We do this to secure our second needles on the stitches. Look, we have cast on several stitches. Our cord has secured itself on the purl side. So, we are simultaneously casting on stitches for both pairs of needles. On the purl side, we see these little V shapes. The yarn goes down and up, catching the cord. Now, I will transfer this pair of stitches to the second needles. So, I already have 2 pairs of needles and 1 set of stitches, by the way. At the edge of the neckline, we can insert the hook in other spots, and a bit more frequently, we check to ensure it looks nice on the front side. The needles at the top, which are directly holding the stitches on the front side, we are leaving alone for now. We will take the working yarn, insert the hook and continue. Here is the initial cord from the first needles. We will thread it over the hook and underneath it. We have cast on a couple of stitches and are transferring them to these needles. This is how it should turn out. And of course we check that the number of stitches matches what we counted. I should have 100 stitches. So, we have cast on. This means we have 2 cords woven along our neckline. The cord closer to us, on the front side, consists of those stitches that we cast onto the hook and transferred to the needle. The cord on the purl side consists of those needles that we wove while holding with our left hand. In the end, we achieved this. Having 2 such cords, we cast on the required number of stitches. By the way, sometimes when casting on stitches, it doesn't result in the desired amount. For example, one might cast on more stitches. I have 100 stitches, and suppose I cast on 105. As I cast on, I make sure there are no gaps, meaning everything looks neat. In this case, we can cast on a few more stitches than needed. Then, in the next row, which we will now knit in our first one, we will immediately decrease them subtly, so there is nothing wrong if you ended up with a few more stitches than necessary. The main thing is that right here, especially here, everything is beautifully cast on, and there are no holes. Now that we have cast on the required number of stitches, we begin knitting the first row. So, right now we are knitting on the front side. That is, we position the fabric with the front side facing us like this. We take the needles that correspond to the front side here. We will knit with these needles. So look where our working yarn is, here it is. The inner needles on the wrong side, which we won't touch now, we push aside so they don't get in our way. Here we will be knitting on the outer side, yes, on the front. Here is our needle, our stitches will be knitted in a circle, so we will now knit the first row with purl stitches. I take this yarn from the ball and start knitting further with purl stitches. The first stitch stretches because the tail is not secured. Here our stitches are positioned such that we need to knit them through the back loop as pearls. The pearl row on the front side is needed to create a mock overcast. So, we knit the first row with pearls around. We finished. Here are the needles on the wrong side. I won't touch them for now. I pulled out the cable from my working needles, where the shoulder seam is, and we are knitting the second row. In the second row, we will knit with knit stitches through the back loop. This will be easier now. We finish up, we have finished, and our third row needs to be knitted with knits, but now through the front loop. These two inner needles are as usual on this side. I don't touch them. I pulled the cable from my working needles out on the opposite shoulder, and we start knitting knits through the front loop. We finish the third row to the end. We finish the third row, and now we leave our kiss one side. We turn the fabric with the wrong side facing us, and now we will knit on the wrong side with the inner needles. We also need to knit 3 rows. However, on the front side, we knitted the first row with purl stitches, and then 2 rows with knit stitches. On the wrong side, from the inner side, we will knit all 3 rows with knit stitches. Now we do not touch the outer needles but knit inside. Here, the stitches go one way and then the other. Therefore we knit stitches in whichever way is more comfortable for us, in principle. It does not matter how you knit, this is the wrong side. All 3 of these rows will not be visible anyway. Here I knit either through the front loop or through the back. Here, we are knitting with knit stitches. I have a cord here as usual. I pulled it out for easier knitting. We finished this row with knit stitches, so we finished. I have a bunch of threads here, don't mind them. We do not touch these outer needles as usual, there they are. So we continue to knit further with knit stitches. But now, we will knit the second and third rows. We simply knit stitches through the front loop, in the round. Well, we have knitted 3 rows of knit stitches on the wrong side. So we have completed 3 rows inside. We have such a little stripe on one set of needles, on the inner ones, and 3 rows on the outside. On the outside, we knitted the first row with purl stitches to highlight our neckline. Well, to create an imitation of a finished edge. Yes, and it turns out that we have a sort of stripe on the front side, and this. Knitted 3 rows high, stripe on the inside, 2 pairs of needles. We are now connecting them like this, and will knit 1 row with knit stitches, picking up stitches either from these needles. On the outside or the stitch that we have inside, so we will connect them like this. That is, from 2 pairs of needles, we will now end up on 1 set of needles. As always on the opposite shoulder, I have pulled the cords from both needles here, yes, to make it easier to knit. Here I have 2 needles from the outer side, and from the inner side. I will probably move the inner needle aside for now. And now I'm going to use the external needle, yes. We connect the 2 needles together. Here is our yarn here. I pick up the front wall of the stitch on the external needle, then the front wall of the stitch on the internal needle. We grab the working yarn, pulling it through both stitches, knitting a knit stitch. The knit side should face us. This is how we knit them in pairs. Therefore, we should have the same number of stitches on the internal and external needles. I have 100 stitches. So we have finished, knitted our two sides, and now after this, we will be knitting simply a ribbing 2 by 2. Here, we have one needle left. The other one we have already put away. Just checking, to make sure we have the needles of the right size. Mine is 3.5 since the other one was 4. Now we simply start knitting. The knit side facing us. We start knitting the ribbing 2 by 2. You can have a ribbing 1 by 1. I knit the knit stitch through the front wall. Here is a hole. It can be tightened later with the tail. 2 knit stitches through the front wall. 2 purl stitches also through the front wall. I knit the purls with the grandmother method. Alternating 2 knits and 2 purls, all through the front wall. Also, we can count the stitches. We should have 100 stitches, a number divisible by 4, we knitted, and now from the second row onward, all subsequent rows are just knitted ribbing, 2 by 2. Now our knits will be knitted as always through the front wall. And the purls will be knitted through the back wall of the purl stitch. Here are the knits through the front wall, and the purls, the grandmother purls, through the back wall. This starts from the second row and onward. Well, let's knit ribbing 2 by 2 until the desired height. Overall, I knitted 8 rows. This is about 2.5 centimeters for me. You can knit to any desired height and then we will close the neckline. We will close it in any way convenient for you. You can knit 2 stitches into one, or you can, for example, slip one. Knit the second stitch, and then place the slipped stitch over the knitted one, or use some other methods of closing with a needle. Here specifically, I closed it with a needle. Above, I'm giving you a link to the lesson. This is the closure that I specifically did here. I just made this a separate lesson. I closed using a needle with a special closure specifically for a ribbing of 2 by 2. The closure is quite elastic, but at the same time, it holds its shape well. So you can close the neckline just like I did. Thank you all, friends, for watching. I hope you succeed. If not, feel free to ask questions in the comments. Thank you for the like and subscription. And we will see each other very